Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Al-Hanbali, and this is Something to Consider. We often think of stories as entertainment, a way to pass time, to escape. But sometimes a story does the opposite. It pulls us closer to ourselves. It makes us confront the silences in our families, the things we hide to fit in, and the echoes of decisions made long before we were born. A story can arrive on the same day as grief, shadowed by the awareness of what others have lost. It can be both validation and a reminder of privilege. It can hold joy and heartbreak in the same breath, especially considering where we are in the world today. My guest today is Sara Hamdan, a Palestinian American journalist-turned-novelist whose debut, What Will People Think?, has already made waves, recognized by Netflix executives, and even featured by Jimmy Fallon. But what makes Sara's work remarkable isn't the spotlight. It's the way her writing inhabits contradictions. The public and the private, the funny and the devastating, the resilience of joy and the persistence of inherited wounds. Beneath the humor lies a deeper excavation, a grandmother's journal, a return to Jaffa in 1947, and a reckoning with the secrets and choices that ripple across generations. Sara's own journey mirrors this layered complexity. Palestinian American, raised in Greece, now based in Dubai, her life has always existed between worlds. She's been a journalist for the New York Times, a Google editor, a financial analyst, and now a debut novelist. And through it all, she's wrestled with the same questions her book poses. How do we honor our heritage while carving out a voice that's fully our own? In this conversation, we explore the messy middle of writing, not just the milestones, but the doubts, rejections, and the rituals that carry you forward. We look at how culture shapes identity on the page, how humor can coexist with intergenerational trauma, and what stories can teach us about resilience, belonging, and courage. And ultimately, how writing itself can become an act of defiance and of hope. Sara, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you. What a stunningly beautiful introduction. That was really, really nicely said. Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Oh, it's such a privilege to have you here. I've been following you for a while on Instagram.
Same.
I know, right? It was back when I was living in Kuwait when I started following you, funny enough, which was 3 years ago. But I remember your story stood out to me, not just for the incredible PR that you've earned because of this experience. Your story stood out to me because you were able to accomplish something that I find so incredibly profound, which is to take feelings, emotions, and thoughts and put it into a format that has the potential to not only cross borders, but connect with people on a universal level. And really, that's what I love about books and stories. And that's really where I want to start with you. What do we need to know about the context of your life to set the stage for this conversation?
Well, thank you for such a thoughtful question. I mean, you've clearly done your homework. And I have to say, you've been following me for 3 years and I've been following you for 3 years. And your conversations always have a lot of heart. So this means a lot to me to be here. And because we do have a lot of similarities in our own journeys. You know, I was born in Kuwait. You have a Kuwait angle. You also have this hybrid model of your life where you come from two different cultures, and it's the same with me. So I will say you've touched on the overarching theme perfectly, which is I've always felt like I didn't fit in one place perfectly, and I could fit in many places, but it's just that breadth rather than depth. And I wanted to just highlight that you can create your own world. And in a world that is a very difficult one, you can create your own joy. And in terms of the context for my background, so I have Palestinian heritage, but I've never been to Palestine. Neither have my parents. I do feel a link to it. I think I was an olive tree in a past life. I think that there's a lot of the beauty of the culture that I wanted to bring to the surface that isn't a usual part of our narrative. I wanted to highlight the simplicity of village life from these anecdotes from my own grandmother who grew up in Jaffa. But then I wanted to also share my own third culture kid experience when I was an Arab American living in New York City and what that felt like, being in conversations around a table with people who come from different backgrounds or who have no idea that Palestine and Pakistan are two different places, you know? So all of these different conversations, I just wanted to package together in this book. And my concern was that it would be hard for someone to connect with. But the beautiful thing I discovered is the universality of the themes. We all are looking for a sense of belonging, for someone to see the real us. And I think this is what resonated at the end of the day. Yes, I've told a story about breaking cultural stereotypes through the eyes of a Palestinian American comedian. This sounds really niche, but actually figuring out who we want to love, the right to love who we want to love, where we belong as a family unit, but also as an individual. These are all very universal themes.
I agree. And I also feel like defining what identity means to you is a pain point that so many people feel at different stages in their life as they evolve and grow. And I feel like when we talk about it through the lens of a Palestinian American or a this plus that, there's always this tension that exists. And I feel like in the tension lies the connection, the insight, the wisdom that makes it universal. Yeah, so that's beautiful. Thank you for that.
Is there any greater tension than just being Palestinian American?
Yeah, like literally, yeah.
Especially in today's world. But again,
especially now.
These are issues that have existed for 75 years. It's just, I think a lot of the world is becoming maybe more informed or more emotionally invested because of how much it's escalated. But it's always been there. And I think this is why it's resonating so deeply now.
Do you feel differently now?
I think it's made me have to dig deeper and maybe justify my views to people in the West or justify views to people here. And I think one thing has really remained the same, which is that universal human element. So again, I've lived in so many different countries in the world. And I think coming from different cultures and experiencing so many different cities has helped me empathize in a way that maybe it takes like a step more for others. So do I feel differently? I think at this stage of my life as a mother, a journalist, a storyteller, everything that we've seen in the past couple of years has been heartbreaking on a new and fresh level. It's like getting it's like a wound that's not allowed to heal. But I feel even more strongly about the fact that we need to find also some joy and some happiness, because how else am I supposed to explain to my children that they do belong in this world and that it is a good and kind one for them? How can I create that when everything that we're seeing says the opposite? You know, I refuse to live in a world that really has allowed what's going on in Palestine today to happen, but also in the wider Middle East, you know? So I think the difference that I feel is that I have to make an active effort, to create something good and something kind, because it doesn't exist. So these are seeds that I hope to plant, and together, even conversations that we have like this, they do make a difference. We're all human beings. We all deserve to eat and to live and to love.
100%. But you know, you referencing this, especially the conversation part, reminds me of something that I talk about quite a bit. I feel like there's especially with us as Palestinians, there's such a yearning to be acknowledged and seen by anyone else that sometimes we forget that because of the context of the past 75, 76 years, there's so much that has been lost in translation between us as Palestinians because we are living in exile compared to the people that are living in the West Bank versus Gaza versus the ones that are living in occupied territories. And our inability to bridge that gap between each other, let's just say I feel like that for me has become a conscious top priority, because I feel like the conversations that need to be had first almost also have to start there.
It's true, but I'm actually encouraged by the fact that there are a lot more stories and conversations happening now than ever before.
True.
Would my story have made it to, New York Times recommended reads and Jimmy Fallon and all of that if it wasn't for this year? Would I have been published in this big way 5 years ago, 10 years ago? I genuinely don't think so. So I think now that level of acceptance and curiosity is there, which is great. And you're seeing a lot more variety in our stories. So, and they all complement each other. I don't think one is better or, there are many different sides of this story to take. And there are the difficult and painful ones that are real, like the Hind Rajab film that's just 100%. Winning all of these awards. So I think they're complementary efforts, because you also get someone like Eliana, the Palestinian Chilean singer who opens for Coldplay and is spreading that joy and happiness. You've seen Mohammed with his tremendous success. So I think there's an appetite for our stories now. And I'm very encouraged by this. And I think it's part of just a wider conversation of the way that the internet and maybe different platforms have democratized the way that we consume and create content. So it's not just a couple of people deciding in the US what is a hit. Now there are stories coming out from all over the world and the audience is deciding what's a hit. And I think there's real power in that. I love it. It's great. I can't wait to write more stories and to see how they're received.
I love that. And I agree with you. When I think about your career, journalism, tech, finance, now writing your first novel. When you look at those chapters, is there a through line that you can kind of, in retrospect, look at that kind of makes sense of how you got here? Or do you feel like it was a series of revelations?
It's funny because on the one side, it seems impressive, like, oh, I've done so much. But on the other side, to me, it feels very scattered. You know, it's clearly someone who's trying to figure herself out. And I am someone who, you give me something to do and I'll get it done to a really high standard. I'm good at what I do, but that also meant that it was hard for me to figure out what I wanted to do and where to put my energy. So at the beginning, I think I've always been a creative. Like there was always an artist inside that was just bursting to come through. But being the typical good, you know, Arab girl, I wanted to try and either do the doctor, banker, lawyer thing. And when I chose the banking route, and I did it, like I chugged along for a couple of years, but I studied corporate finance of all things. Wow. And then I got a job at Merrill Lynch. Like, you know, I got in there. I did it. Mom and dad were proud. They would tell their friends at weddings, our daughter is a banker. And that felt nice when I was in my early 20s, but it really wasn't me. I'd go into work every day and just like feel my soul wither a little bit. I'm staring at this flashing Bloomberg screen with numbers and it wasn't me. And we'd go out for lunch breaks and I would be reading a book and my colleagues would be looking up stock market prices because that is their world. And I realized, you know, I'm not going to last here. And I always wanted to be a writer and I was trying to figure out how to make money as a writer. So journalism was the next best thing that I could think of. And journalism is excellent training. So you learn how to have an eye for good stories, how to write on deadline, how to, I interview different people so that you can glean a good insight. So it gave me really great training. And I did that for a long time. But in the back of my mind, in my heart, I always wanted to write a novel. It was just from my very early days. Like people ask me, when did you realize you want to be a writer? It wasn't an active, conscious thought. I always was a writer from the very early days when I could read. I started writing little stories for my sister when I was 7 and she was 4 and illustrate them, and I still have them.
Wow.
You know, so it was always in me, but I think I needed to have that confidence in myself. And that's what took a really long time. So there were internal and external roadblocks to me becoming a novelist. And one of them was really that self-doubt of, can I do this? When you're working full time and you have children and you're achieving in a career that is prestigious, you know. I was an editor-in-chief at Google. How do you give that up to say, I want to sit at home and write a novel? Like that's it doesn't have logical sense, you know.
How do you give that up?
Exactly.
Like what was that like? Like just taking a decision like that, because it's quite bold. And I would imagine, because I write as well, I would imagine there was a specific pull, or was there a specific moment that kind of put you in a position where you were just like, yeah, no, I'm letting this go?
You say it's bold. I think it's insane, you know, but I think an artist is kind of led by not just passion, but a delusion almost. It's like this mad love affair with the thing that you want to do, and it doesn't let you go. You know, it doesn't let you go until you just do it. So in my case, I remember I had just had my second child. I had returned day 1 from my second maternity leave. So I'm, 2 kids, full-time job. And my work wife, Noor, she tells me, how are you feeling about everything? And the first thing I said to her was, it's good to be back, but I just wonder if I'm ever going to have time to write a book. You know, it's been my dream, and now it just feels like it's getting further and further away as life and its demands take over. And she said to me, maybe that's okay. You know, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do stuff, and look at how much you already have. And these are great blessings, and maybe that's enough. And that was the singular moment where I was like, hell no, no, I am here on this earth to write a book. This is just what will make me happy. And I can't let that go. So I started to come to work half an hour early and just write at my desk before the workday started. And after a year, I had a book.
Wow.
Yes. And then that novel was widely rejected.
Really?
24 agent rejections along the lines of, we like it, but it's not good enough. So then was the hurdle of, okay, maybe now I should give up because my kids are getting a little older, toddler, baby, job, pandemic hit. And then it was just this deep, resounding, no, I don't know how to do that. If I do that, I really think I will just suffer. It is suffering. I cannot put it any other way. I needed to just be able to write as a creative outlet and something just for me. And I think a lot of moms might resonate with this. We lose ourselves a little bit when we have children and you have this really important thing that you need to give all of your energy. And I also had a full-time job. So many things in my life were all consuming. I needed to carve out that 20 minutes that was just for me in order to live. And that's where the book number 2 came in, which is what will people think. So I think my first novel was like, I usually refer to it as my first pancake. It was my training ground. I'd never written a full, complete manuscript before. Journalism is different. An article, you publish it, you get the immediate feedback, you know what's working, what's not. A full novel, you're talking about pacing, character development, structure, all of these different elements. So I was learning. So then when it came time to write the second idea that I had, I was a little bit more informed. And then a defining moment, middle of the pandemic, I was completely burned out. And I know this is a feeling you'll relate to, but I'd gotten to the point where I had given it a real shot with the novel, the first one, and it didn't work. So I was feeling like I was carrying the weight of this broken dream. It was a pandemic. I was working full-time around the clock because suddenly the hours between home life and work life blurred and my work was online. And I was trying to homeschool these kids who, you know, how do you tell a 5-year-old child to sit in front of Zoom and pay attention to a teacher? It's just not going to work. And the wider thing of like, oh my God, are we going to catch COVID and all die? So it was just a very, very difficult time. And even now when I talk about it, I just feel those emotions all rise up again of like, what are we doing here? Does it ever get any better? And I saw on Twitter that Netflix's handle was offering some sort of story contest for the first time. Send us a single page from something you're working on. And we just need to see a character who comes from a similar background as you. So I took a page out of this manuscript and I submitted it and I totally forgot about it. Spent a summer. I left my job because I was so burned out. And I remember that first month just sleeping. I was sleeping like 14 hours a day. My body and my heart, my mind, my soul, I was so fully depleted on so many fronts. I slept a lot and just tried to be there for my kids and then tried to work on my novel to complete it. And then after 6 months, I got an email that I'd won an award and I flew out to London and I accepted this golden shiny prize. And it says, and I have, you know, pictures on Getty Images and it says Netflix and look, I have goosebumps thinking about it just now. And that was like the sign from the universe. You're going to be fine. This is the right track to take. And then when I started to believe in myself and that confidence built, that's when things began to snowball. So this stagnant energy and these setbacks, all of the failure that now I realize is actually feedback that made me better and better and better. When I decided I am onto something great and this is going to be big, when I decided that internally, suddenly everything, like the doors opened, all the traffic lights turned green. And that's when one thing happened after another, fellowship, publishing deal, going to auction, 6 figures, all this big shiny stuff that we're here to talk about now is off the back of all of these years of like slogging through the mud.
Wow. I mean, there's so much that I want to delve into, but I think what's key is that the shiny, beautiful stuff that provided you with the validation you needed to pursue it, which is basically what we all see. That's what people post. To get there was, I believe, a 10-year journey, right?
Yes.
So talk to me about that 10-year journey, because Here's the thing about creatives and about empaths, and I'm kind of labeling you that specifically because of the way that you talked about yourself as a mother. Empath, creative, you have an idea of a higher purpose, of what you want to do and a passion point. Put all those things together, it almost has the ability to also be quite debilitating.
Yeah.
Especially when you are in a situation in your life where you are quote unquote stable.
Yes.
And I feel like as Arabs, we have a tendency to fall into the mindset of be grateful for what you have, especially
Absolutely.
as Palestinians. And no, don't ask questions. What do you mean more? You have everything. We said once you have it, you're going to be happy. So how does one with kind of these characteristics move from a space of this almost becoming paralysis where you're stuck into a space where at least you're trying, even if that next step is minute and small? How does one move in that space? Because it's messy.
Yeah. And it's so true. I mean, you've put it so perfectly, because it is this like generational trauma that we carry with us, right? My father, I was telling you earlier, the family was displaced from Jaffa when he was a baby, like I'm talking 6 months old or something. And then the family went to Lebanon. He worked really hard. He provided for his younger siblings. He was the eldest. He put his own brothers and sisters through university because the family had lost everything. And then the civil war happened in Lebanon. So again, he had to move to Kuwait, which is where he met my mother. And then working really hard, again, head down, still helping his siblings and wider family. And then the Gulf War happened, again, displaced. And then there were a couple of years where we moved around to many different countries before we settled in Greece, where I lived for about 10 years. And that was probably the most stable period for us as a family. But how do I tell this hardworking man that I want to give up a big fancy job to pursue art? You know, I think that was one of the hardest things. And one of the reasons why I held myself back for so long. I needed that validation of something like the Netflix award or something to prove that I wasn't throwing away, not just all of my hard work of having studied at these amazing US universities and climbed the corporate ladder, that I wasn't throwing myself away, but also all of the hard work that he had put in, all the sacrifices he made. That was such a hard sell. Like if I was going to go down this route, I couldn't fail. It wasn't an option. And this is very scary. It's not like I'm doing something and if it works out, great. And if it doesn't, great. Like I'm not a trophy wife, you know? So everything, my time was very intentional and my family's time was very intentional. And I just had to make sure that if I was doing something, it was going to work out. And that was hard. So I think part of it was taking that pressure off of the large scale thing and just writing for myself every day, writing little scenes that nobody would see. It just makes me happy. I've said it before in other interviews, but it's kind of like a singer who loves to sing and you sing in the shower. No one hears you, but it makes you feel so good. Carpool karaoke, you know? So this was my version of that. And I often say that it's taken me 10 years to write this novel, but the reality is there are scenes from this that I had written by hand in college when I was in my 20s. So you could argue this has been a 20-year journey, but I feel like it's really depressing to say that. I think 10 sounds a little better. So it's been a long road and there is never a guarantee of success, but I think what shifted for me is that I still did the hard work. I still worked for the New York Times and Google and all the brands and made good money and all of that. But I did something a little for me that even nobody knew, just writing in a journal. And I think one thing that really helped me is having a very supportive partner. So my husband, he completely understands what it means to be a creative. So he would tell me, you know, why don't you just take today and go to a coffee shop and just write for a few hours? He's like, your words are gold and one day this will be something. And to have somebody constantly give you that messaging when the rest of your life isn't, that really, really helped, because I would write something that I think is cute. And then I'd share it with him and be like, this is such a great concept. And I can see it as a film and I can see this. So having this little cheerleader was a game changer for me. So I think for any creative, whether it's a partner or a best friend or a mentor or an online, you know, like a writing buddy in my case, finding that person who can help you and brainstorm and you can bounce ideas off of, for me, this was the big game changer. If it wasn't for him, I don't think I would have reached here.
I really like that as a takeaway, especially because the creative journey itself sometimes is quite isolating.
Yeah.
I always tell people, whether it's writing or any form of art, it's a very vulnerable exercise. You are naked in your words. So how does one kind of get past that and trust creative partners, or even get to a point where they're ready to share? Because one thing I notice is that creatives kind of cocoon in little bubbles, which again goes back to this idea of never sharing anything, paralysis, right? So how did trust play in? Like, did you just, I mean, obviously you trust your partner, your life partner, but like, is it just a matter of you're welcoming the judgment, or did you know that it was going to be a non-judgment space? Or how does one trust sharing their work before it's ready? Because I think that's necessary to the process.
It is. And I think with any creative pursuit, there is the public aspect. So you create in private, let's say, but then for it to do well, or for it to, and when I say do well, I don't even mean success. I just mean connecting with somebody. It means you need to share it at some point. So the sooner you can get over that block for yourself, the better for you. Sharing means feedback. It means potentially somebody being moved by what you've done and maybe creating their own. So you have to stop thinking of it in terms of, what if I suck and they tell me I suck and I'll stop? I think you have to think about the reasons why you're afraid to share it. So if you're afraid of judgment, you'll never make it, because you have to put yourself out there in order to be seen. So you just have to be open to the idea that you can't please everybody, and you will get negative feedback, and you will survive it and get up and do it again and maybe improve. So, I love to watch cooking shows to relax. And there's always chefs that make dishes, and then you see them present their dishes, and then the judge will say, oh, it was too salty and I didn't like it. And then they pan over to the person who's created the dish and they say, yeah, you know what? I think it was. And next time I'm going to try these spices. And that attitude is the right one. You have to take every failure, every judgment as feedback to improve, because what you want is to write the best story that you can. And I think sharing stuff with my husband helped me with that. So, I mean, the main character in my novel is a stand-up comedian, and my husband has a background in comedy. So he would read scenes and tell me, Sarah, this is not funny at all. I'm like, I think it's funny. Maybe your sense of humor isn't like a woman's sense of humor. You'd be like, no, this is just flat out profoundly unfunny. And then we'd have to like rewrite scenes together. And even now, after all the accolades, you can go on Goodreads and you'll see 1-star reviews that say this is terribly unfunny. And it's okay. You cannot please everyone. Even Coldplay doesn't please everyone. There are people who hate Coldplay. So I think part of it is letting go of this thing that you're here to please people. You're not. You're here to please yourself. And I think there's power in that. And the other thing is, if you're afraid to share your work because someone might steal it or use it in some way, in some malicious way, it's about the execution. So I could have a really brilliant idea and I share it with you and you steal it and you run with it. It'll still be different to what I would have done with it. So I think just try it and see how you feel, and you might be surprised. You could share your work and someone really loves it, win a Netflix Story Award out of nowhere, and it becomes the motivation to complete or keep going or grow bigger and better.
Very well put. There are a lot of Arab women that live with this tension of the public face we show and the private truth inside. And this is kind of a central theme in your book, or even the title, like نحن بالعربي شو حيقولوا العالم,
Exactly.
How has this shaped not only the novel, but the way that you, Sara, move through life?
So the title of the novel is kind of tongue-in-cheek, because every Arab woman from a young age is told شو رح يقولوا الناس, and it's like, from what you study to what you're going to wear to a party to who you're going to marry, all the big and small life decisions, there's this faceless jury that you have to also appease. So part of it was this tongue-in-cheek of, what are people going to think? In this case, Mia, the main character, is a comedian, and she has to say raunchy stuff and not care what people think in order to be authentic, but at the same time, still honor her family, because we are a collective society and you do represent people. So it is living in these two different worlds. For me personally, it's, I think as a creative, it's really hard to put yourself out there. You are very vulnerable. Like you said, you have to dig deep. even if the characters and the settings are all fictional, the emotions in this book are all real. It's kind of like method acting. So everything that I've felt has been poured into this. So for someone to come back and say that they didn't like it or whatever it is, it's very scary. It's very hard. So I think for me, it's just about learning what to do with the idea that people are thinking something and to be okay with them, with that. Breaking free from the expectation that you need to please everyone, learning how to please myself. And I think putting myself first, it's not something that comes naturally. I wouldn't even say to an Arab woman, I'd say just to women in general. We're always told to be nice, play nice, be good member of your family.
Calm down.
Yeah, don't cry at work, you know? So I think part of it is just, as a woman, learning to put myself first. And that actually makes me a better mother, a better employee, a better novelist. It's a healthy thing. And I wish to deliver that message to my daughter too, you know? Learn how to put yourself first and take care of others too. Don't forget yourself.
And I think that speaks to the universality of this as a theme. But I'm curious, do you think that storytelling in general as a practice changes the storyteller first or the audience?
I think I've always been a storyteller, so I don't know how to differentiate myself from somebody who tells a story. So I would actually love to ask you, do you feel changed when you read a book? Have you ever read something and fundamentally thought differently? Because for me, as somebody who's traveled a lot, read a lot, writes a lot, I'm always thinking, you know? So I feel like I'm never rigid in my outlook. I'm always open to hearing different opinions, but I'm also very well researched, so I know how to hold a good conversation. I don't think things change me, but I will be influenced if it's correct and if I've assessed it in that way. So it is like a conversation. I'll say it's a journey. I never arrive at a specific outcome. But do you feel changed when you're faced with something that is very different, a book that you've read that you've completely walked out and thought, I'm a different human now?
I think I like the way you put it in terms of it's almost like a dual dialogue versus like this monologue of you consuming and there's no relationship there. The way that I see it is, while my belief systems, maybe in some cases, there were some books that, you know, helped me shift perspective. I think what I look for as an audience, and as a storyteller, is to be moved. And I feel like even when it comes to things that I don't understand, and that's where the power of storytelling sits, your ability to also be moved by the things that you don't necessarily understand or relate to. I'm someone who consumes because I want to be moved. Whether it's a movie or a book or just listening to your story, I look for those moments where I'm just like, wow, that hit me. That hit me not because I've been through that, but because I understand where she's coming from. So yeah. I think,
completely agree with you. And I think emotions are actually our superpower, and we're told to always harness them or keep them in check. But my greatest hits in life have always been down to emotion. So either in a job, leading a team effectively, it's actually quite emotion and intuition based. A lot of times it isn't that hierarchy or the logic and you do this and you do that. It is an understanding of people and how they think and feel differently.
Yeah.
But also it informs my work. When I'm creating characters, their feelings need to feel real, but also they might feel differently to how I might in a situation. So I think this emotional intelligence and an ability to move and be moved, this is why I love stories too.
Do you think we tell stories to remember or to forget?
I think part of it is to create our own, sometimes, narratives and to own it and to record. The journalist in me has always written to remember and to get things right. Maybe to dictate what comes next. It comes from a place of power. I don't think I've ever written to forget. Writing in itself is an act of documenting to me. There's a sense of rooting there. If I want to forget, I'll go to a drums class or something, or I'll do something that doesn't have to do with taking these big thoughts and processing them, distilling it into the perfect way to describe how I feel. So for me, it's very much rooted in recording, remembering, honoring.
I love that. But I find even now in listening to your answer, I'm reflecting on my own experience, because as someone who does have a tendency to kind of self-isolate when I go down my rabbit hole of feeling my feelings, the page is the place where I offload. And when I go back to specific entries, whether it's in my journal or different things that I've written down, I find myself kind of feeling like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I was that person at that time.
Yeah.
Like there's something powerful in this ability to also offload and forget, giving, or at least it gave me the space to kind of clear.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I think it's a really important practice, and I wish everyone would do it. And I journal all the time. I think there's something powerful about writing by hand. But you just said it yourself, so you'll go back and read it and remember.
Yeah, that's true.
So it is, in the moment, maybe a way to offload and forget. But now it's recorded, and you'll forever go back to that entry and remember exactly how you felt that day.
Do you think that belonging is something that we inherit or something we invent ourselves? Because I've talked about it before as being kind of like this elusive illusion that is unattainable. And you've referenced it in this conversation as something you found in people. I don't remember if you said it now or before, but it's so beautiful. So what are your thoughts on this idea of belonging?
I grew up in Greece, and there are many friends of mine who their families still live in the same little village, house, and town that their great-great-great-grandparents lived in. You know, so that deep sense of belonging, they just have innately. They never even think to question it. Because I don't have that, I think about it a lot. I've written this whole novel that's about cultural identity and seeking this sense of belonging. And I've thought about it so much. Writing this book was a form of therapy for me, because I always wonder where I belong and if I belong. But I've learned that it's not a perfect box for me, and that's okay. And that the way the world is moving, so many of us are either, we have parents from different cultures, or we live in a different place to where we were born, or you live in one place and then you end up moving somewhere else for work. So the world is a lot more globalized, and so is the internet. It's just open. So now you can yourself learn about other cultures without ever having visited. So I think in this context, the world is a different place, and I've made peace with it. And I have children now who are, they have Irish blood. They have Palestinian blood. They're born and raised in Dubai, but they visit Greece all the time because I grew up there, so they also have the same feeling of being a third culture kid. And that's okay. Maybe that's an identity in and of itself now. And for me, I seek home in people. My husband is home. My children are home. My mom and dad are home. My sister, So I think it's about defining what works for you. You said something really nice earlier about romanticizing whatever circumstance you're in. And I think I have a natural tendency to do that anyway, even through hard points in my life or through hardship. I tend to look for silver linings because I don't know how else to live my life. I don't want to be miserable. So I naturally look for ways to make myself okay. And I think cultural identity is something that is always shifting. Like now I've lived in Dubai for 20 years. This is home for me now in a way that Greece used to be because I lived there for a long time. You can have many homes. How do you feel about it?
I was so touched by you making home about the people.
Yeah.
And for me, home has always been where I grew up. It's always been Kuwait. I was born and raised there. That's home. Although I feel this pull towards both Lebanon and Palestine. And I summer in Jordan. So Jordan's a big part of my identity too. I feel like also there's something in what you said that reminds me that belonging very much has to do with being seen. And I feel like there's a space for belonging in myself that I don't necessarily have to seek externally. And I feel like this resistance that I find between me and whatever I'm seeking externally in pursuit of belonging is what takes me out of this feeling like I belong more. It's almost like I'm hurting myself more the more that I want it and pursue it, When at the end of the day, if I give myself a little bit of grace and understand that a lot of that feeling sits within me,
Yes.
in accepting me, in seeing me, I think there's something in there. I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. And also, I mean, for people of Palestinian heritage, many of us in the diaspora end up kind of seeking each other out or feeling this familiarity and asking, do you also feel like you don't belong? You know, and I think that's part of what connected me and you, because you recognize this struggle. So someone else has had the same one, and it is very internal. So now I accept myself in all of the different colors that exist. And I see that others have it too. And I think that's a form of belonging, you know? When I'm with people who are Palestinian, I don't feel fully Arab. I feel like, oh, she's the ajnabi, the foreigner who grew up in Greece and studied in the States. I feel very white girl. And when I'm in the US, I'm grouped with the Indians and the brown girls. And I feel myself othered in both circumstances, but I choose to feel like I am both at the same time. It's actually up to us.
Yeah.
You know, so I can either see it as I don't belong, or I choose to see it as I can belong anywhere. And there's a real beauty in that. And I think this is why I love living in Dubai. I have to say that, because you do meet people from so many different backgrounds. I have lived in so many different places, like we said. I have never felt as comfortable being myself in my own skin as I have here, because you do meet people who are third culture kids. Everybody, oh, I'm half Filipino, half Kenyan. I grew up in Switzerland, but my father is German and my mother is Turkish. Everybody kind of has an interesting story to tell. It's a city of stories. And I think this is what I love so much. I've been here for 20 years and it very, very much feels like a form of home. I feel I belong here, and that's beautiful. It's a choice.
That's so empowering. What do you think your grandmother would say to you today?
I actually brought her to my book launch event in Dubai, and she was so cute wearing her little pearls.
Habibti.
And, you know, a lot of the scenes that take place in Palestine in the 1940s were inspired by her stories of, oh, we used to walk by this school and this dukkan and this mosque. And she would tell me her neighbors are Jewish when she was 6 years old, and Rachel, and they used to play by the sea together. You know, all of these incredible, simple village life scenes that we never get to see. So when the book came out, and she was so proud, and she's in the acknowledgements, and I had her stand up and everyone clapped for her, and she was like, can I come on stage? I was like, no, Teta, stay right there. You're good. It was very sweet. She's proud. I think it's a nice way to honor her legacy in a way. My novel is fiction, but it's influenced by her a lot. And I think it's just nice to be able to tell our stories in this way. You know, we have a big tradition of oral storytelling, and I've contributed to that now with the book.
That's so powerful. Wow. I usually end my conversations with all my guests on a question. I ask you to give me something to consider, or ask me a question. What would you like me to consider?
When you feel that true sense of belonging, and you are happy and at peace with who you are and where you are, what's next for you?
You know, I had this conversation with someone recently, and I was telling them that I'm at this really unique place in my life that I've never been in before, where I still have aspirations of things that I want to do, but I'm actually quite content with where I am. And I feel like there's a power in being content and fulfilled. I need to add that. I feel incredibly fulfilled because what I'm doing is very much aligned to my values. I've focused more on my passion of storytelling. I've surrounded myself with people that are just adding so much value to my life, and I'm learning from in so many ways. So this space of fulfillment, there's a beautiful community of belonging that exists there that's quite special. It sounds morbid, but I have been saying, you know, if it were all to end today, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't, I'm no longer, have you ever seen Hamilton, the show?
I have, yeah. I watched it in New York.
There's a song where, you know, his wife is telling him, you always write like you're running out of time.
Yeah.
And that was me for a very long time, a really large part of my career. And I've made peace with this idea that I'm not in a race with myself anymore. I'm centering myself around this stage. So I feel like that is what's next for me. How do I get comfortable with sustaining this? And how am I going to evolve in this space of being more at peace? It reminds me of a similar place that I find older people in my life. Allah yarhamhum, my grandparents. Now I look at my father, my mother. They're in a stage of their lives where they're just so much calmer and at peace. And
not chasing.
There's something beautiful in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you?
But it just could be the phase of life.
Yeah.
I have to write a second book. And the first one has been this big journey and it's all dramatic in 10 years. And the next one is like due in 10 months. And it has to have the same emotional impact. So for me, I think I've dreamt of being a successful novelist for a long time. And I did reach a measure of success in terms of the critical acclaim now. And it's wonderful. But how do I sustain it without rushing it and still appearing real, just appearing real? So I think the journey for me will be to keep writing stories that hit in this way and move people. I just want to move people.
I love that.
Yeah.
Sara, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I feel like I could have talked for another 3 hours with you.
By the way, first of all, I hope we can be friends. Like we are going
we
to.
Are.
We could have continued this conversation for longer, but you've given me a lot to consider. So
thank you. And me too.
And to all of you listening, I want to thank you for the privilege of your time. If you follow the show, thank you so much for supporting us. If you don't, please do follow us on whatever platform you listen to this show on. It does help us in terms of developing the content. I love reading your comments, so please don't hesitate to leave us a comment with your thoughts, your considerations, or any feedback that you have about this episode. As always, I want to thank you for the privilege of your time. I hope you found something to consider.